Hi, welcome to another episode of the Investor's Guide to Hard Money Lending. Today we have a guest. He's a project manager with CoreBuild here within our parent company. It's Rich Harrell. So, Rich, very, very happy to have you on here.
Glad to be here.
Yes, and so tell me, we'll get into start talking about some things, but tell me a little bit about your background first.
Yeah, so I started in real estate in 2017, 2018, doing a whole lot of wholesaling. I went to a conference in Nashville with my dad, and I was just there, and there was a conference about wholesaling, and it was just a really unique opportunity because I just didn't know that, those are opportunities that you can make that much amount of money just by assigning a piece of paper to somebody. So came back to Memphis, and I basically took everything that guy was actually telling me to do and then just executed it. And then from there, I went on to flipping homes, and then from there, new construction. So
I gotcha. So, bit had your toe in a little bit of everything within the real estate market here in Memphis.
yeah, for sure. I mean, the Memphis market is a very unique market just because there's so many exit strategies. In particular, you're going to have your turnkey exit strategy. You're going to have your just regular residential retail exit strategy, and then you could do new construction too as well. Some markets you don't have; it's not as versatile. I think Memphis offers opportunities that you can be very versatile in any exit strategy out there.
Absolutely. It's you can have a double exit strategy. Okay, this can either be a turnkey flip or I can sell it
Yeah.
retail. We've got a lot of that in that sweet spot. And with the real estate market the way it is kind of here, it's good to have those strategies. So, talking a little about we've seen where our retail flips, we're not seeing as many of those right now because unless
Yeah.
they're in specific areas because of the sitting on days on the market. But where we are seeing people have a lot of success still in flips is on those turnkey flips.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about turnkey flips, like what you did on those, what people need to be thinking about versus a retail flip for a turnkey flip.
Yeah, turnkey flips, there's just more value of them on the market. When you think about a retail flip, there's only so many of those that you can buy at one time just because of where the interest rates are. And then you think about Memphis as a city, we're more of a landlord city than a home ownership city. And so when you have that dynamic, you're just going to have a lot more volume and opportunity to do turnkeys instead of doing the traditional retail.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what do investors need to think of differently? Put that turnkey, like say when it comes to finishes, what do you look for, or you say is smart to spend the money on versus not spend the money on a turnkey flip?
Turnkey flips, you want to have just a standard rental grade finish.
And what are those?
And those are just basically builder grade fixtures. As far as like vanities, you don't want to go all out on vanities. As far as paint, I think when I started doing turnkeys, I was doing just so much in the house trying to make it look like picture perfect. So I'm using Bear paint and doing all that. And then I was like, well, I really don't have to do all that just because there's going to be a renter in here. And over time, this house is going to have to be turned again. And so we're just talking about bare minimum finishes for the most part. Make it livable, but just don't try to basically make it like Instagram worthy or anything like that. So
You want to make it Section 8 worthy, where it's going to pass those inspections.
yeah, for sure. I mean, I would say a big tip is if you don't have to paint the exterior, just don't paint it because that's going to cost a lot of money. Pressure wash that stuff.
And then that's always going to be a maintenance expense moving forward.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to have to maintain that paint. So, pressure washing brick, things like that. I would spend most of the money really just on landscaping and curb appeal and things like that because you want it to rent out quick. And so when somebody sees that, they're not necessarily looking at the exterior, really. They want the exterior to look clean, but they want to see, okay, well, this is a kept up yard, so that leads me that the house is going to be kept up too as well on the inside. So people are really looking at the curb appeal, and that's how you get these houses to rent out quickly with the turnkey model.
And I hadn't even thought about that aspect, but it's still, they may be renting, but it's still home to them. They still want to
Yeah.
come home to something that looks nice.
Yeah, another big thing is just interior paint too as well, making sure that looks nice, making sure your lines look nice. Instead of, upgrading to granite, you can do a nice Formica. Maybe just a farm sink if you want to, just to give it some type of upgrade, but you kind of just want to pick and choose. You don't want to try to upgrade the entire house when you're doing those turnkey rentals. And, that's how you're going to get the biggest profit out of those too as well.
Yes, because you want to make sure you're not, you kind of want to still stay at that 1% rule where you don't want to, you've got 180 into it. You're not going to sell it for 200 if
Yeah.
the rent is only 1,500.
Yeah, that 1% rule really does work. That's what a lot of investors are looking for. With interest rates being as high as they are right now, you can get really close to that 1%, but you're just not really touching it with the rates right now. So a lot of investors are going to be looking at the cap rate too as well. So, if a good cap rate for Memphis is probably around that 5 to 8% for turnkey is what investors are looking for. And, right now, I would say try to be as 1% as you can to the actual purchase price of that. So, like you said, if it's 180,000, you probably want to market that at about 1,800. Right now, I'm actually doing some mentorships with some investors like out of town right now. And what I've been advising her, because she's trying to do turnkey rentals, is if you can do a 2-year lease instead of a 1-year lease, that's actually going to be extremely beneficial when you try to sell that turnkey, because now you've locked that tenant in for 2 years, and that's an asset that you can pass along to the to the transferring owner, and it's going to make you stand out from people that are doing just 12-month leases on that. If you can't do 2-year, I would try to do 18 months. Just kind of try to think out the box, because with the rates being as high as they are right now, you're going to have to give people other incentives other than that 1% rule, because you may not be at the 1% rule anymore. So if you can lock in somebody at an 18 to 24-month lease, that will, I'm not going to say it's going to overtake the 1% rule, but it does give somebody a bigger incentive to buy that property.
And you bring up, as long as it's still a good rate that you're locked
Yeah.
in for a 2-year lease.
Yes,
But to speak to your point on that, it's also a good, if you go to sell it, because then they know they're not going to have to do a turn on this property for at least, say, a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah, and that's the unique thing about the turnkey model. You see these investors that are buying these properties, most of them are out of state too as well, and they don't really have the means to actually manage the rehab. And so if they have to do a turn in 1 year and they don't have the resources to do it, it's just going to be extremely difficult. So offering them an 18-month, 24-month lease and say, hey, this is going to cash flow at least for 18 months, where the property is ready. You shouldn't have to do any repairs at all. But people are moving around a whole lot too as well. So at least you got an additional 6 to 12 months, and it's just going to boost their cash flow.
I agree with that. And then kind of moving it to another piece of like a turnkey flip, or you could do turnkey new construction.
Yeah.
Tell me, what are your thoughts on that?
So I see a lot of people doing that. I took a different route where I was doing just retail new construction. I had a couple partners that were venturing into turnkey new construction too as well. And I've been hearing a lot about it where, there's investors buying these lots for like 6 to 10,000, and then their bill, per square feet is probably 120 to 130. And so they may be all in close like to 160 or something like that, and maybe selling for like, let's just say like 220 or something like that. So it just depends. I would say if you're going to do that model, you definitely need to have a good builder that can build that house really quick. I see the people that are being successful with that, they're getting those houses up in about 90 to 120 days. And if you're going to do that with hard money, that's really where you need to be. Another tip is get those things pre-sold if you can. Just because if you can get them pre-sold, then you're not worrying about them sitting on the market. Just, because turnkey or retail, it's still going to sit just because the days on market are going to reflect turnkeys too, in a way. So pre-selling those is good. That's what I wish I would have did that with my new construction homes. I wish I would have pre-sold some of those. And sometimes you can, and sometimes you can't. It just depends. But I would say just have a pipeline of investors ready. If you can partner with Crestcore, we have buyers too as well. Dean has buyers, and say, hey, I'm about to build this house. Let's get it pre-sold. And 4 months instead of waiting another, 4 months to build, and you got to wait another 4 months to sell. Your loans coming due eventually.
Right.
So.
And yeah, you say and what you're talking about on the turnkey, the new construction, we're seeing that too. Like our borrowers, we see a lot of them be all in for around 145, and then they turn around, they get them pre-sold for around the 195 to 200 mark on it. And they've got the tenant in there at about 1,900 a month, and they're saying that you're seeing tenants there paying more because it's new construction. And then the investors are liking these turnkey new constructions because they're not going to have to worry about what is behind those walls, or am I going to need to replace a roof in the next 5 years? No, some of these big systems, they're worried it's going to still cash flow because you're not going to have those big maintenance requests.
Yeah, and the good thing with new construction is you get a builder's warranty too.
Right.
So you got that. It's really a fail-safe investment for the person that's buying it. Because everything's brand new. There should not be anything wrong with the property at all. Everything's new. So, and it's a good incentive because you are paying. You're getting somebody in there at 1,900, and typically people over 1,500 tend to stay in those properties a little bit longer, or they don't mess up the property. So, you're getting a high quality tenant in there. Somebody's paying 1,900. That means they have the financial means to keep up the property too as well. You shouldn't have any work orders for repairs or anything for a very long time. So
They're not doing it. And we see a lot of this new construction because Memphis is an older city. So in a lot of these places where they're buying these lots for, you say, 6 to 10,000, that's exactly what we see too with our borrowers coming in. What's around them, they're 3-bedroom, 1-bath. Well, you've got this new construction turnkey, or that it's 3 bedrooms, 2 bath. The longevity you get out of a tenant with having that second bathroom too. And even on turnkey rentals, turnkey flips like that, if you do have it, if you can put that second bathroom in there, or you're going to get more longevity out of your tenant too.
Yeah, and that has to be a bigger focus for investors right now, just because everybody's being more picky with the rates being as high as they are. So it's not like 2020 where you can go out and buy anything and it's going to sell.
Right.
So if you're doing build to rent, the plan has to be very ideal. You shouldn't be doing any build to rents for 3-1s at all.
No.
It just doesn't make sense to do that because you're building a new house, so why do it? So if you can fit a garage in there, without blowing up your budget, do that too as well. But I've just been seeing a lot of, yeah.
A garage is a luxury.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think about that too, security. If you're selling, if you have a garage, more than likely that's probably going to be a family moving in. It's not going to be a single owner or a single tenant. And typically single tenants can move around a whole lot, so you're reducing the risk of somebody moving every 12 months. So building a garage, more than likely family, they want something stable. They're not going to just kind of move and, things like that. So.
You bring up a good point there, and I thought of one property that they decided not to sell, but they were thinking of selling. It was in Cooper Young, in Midtown, and he was really thinking about selling it because it was on Bruce Street, and it was the turnover. You got that single tenant. It was great rents, maybe like $2,300-$2,400 a month in rent because it was walking distance to Cooper Young, but the constant turnover because then they would have life changes where it'd be marrying and then starting families where they're moving. So if you get something that's already has that garage or enough bedrooms for them to expand their family, then you could keep them there longer because that's their home.
Yeah. I mean, that's a good point because, you're bringing up future, people, they're going to have kids and things like that. They may not have a kid when they move into the home, but what if the space is already there instead of them looking for that space too as well? So I think if you put all those aspects into building like new construction, thinking about, okay, well, I got this plan. How many square foot do I need to make this plan for somebody to stay in here long term? You know what I mean? Can I make a bigger closet? Can I, things like that? Because, you can go and configure these plans however you want to configure them. You don't have to just use a set plan or anything like that. You can use a set plan and then you can actually configure a set plan too as well. So those are just like some really savvy things that, if you are doing the BTR method to think about. And if you're really doing that, you're just only going to increase the value. And if you increase the value, you increase the profit that you're going to make at the end of the day.
Yeah, and in some of you brought it up earlier that this city is a lot of renters, and that's really probably never going to change just due to the nature of our city. But you've got some of these people; they'll move in and they will stay for 20 years. I had a buyer for some duplexes, and it was doing the inspections. We found one tenant that has been living there longer than I've been alive. They've been living there since 1970 something in that same place. So if you can keep them that long, that's that much less maintenance you're going to have to do, or turning, not maintenance necessarily, because that's still going to come up, but rehabbing properties.
Yeah, I would say moving is a hassle. A lot of people don't want to do it.
I don't ever want to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, if you're moving every 12 months, it's like every 12 months I got to find somewhere. And you think about it, with the BTR model, you think about the model in a sense where if I'm a tenant and I'm going to move after 12 months of being in a built-to-rent home, where am I going? You're going to go to a home that's probably not BTR because there's not just a whole lot of BTRs out there. So
No.
you're going to be looking at an older home. Older homes going to have older fixtures. You're going to have just inherited problems from other tenants too as well. And you think about the BTR model in a sense where you're the first person in that home too as well. So it's a brand new home to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you move after 12 months of that, you're going to inherit somebody else's problems unless you're moving to another BTR, but that may not be available.
We don't have whole communities of BTRs.
Exactly.
And that's build to rent for those out there. And we're seeing it too, though. Like we're seeing a lot of application doing a lot of things over in what's crazy to me, which was not the case a few years ago, but in 114 in historic Orange Mound, you're seeing a lot of our investors take these 2-1s and they're expanding them about 300 square feet and they're adding 2 more bedrooms and a bathroom. So in essence, kind of creating that much larger space so that they get these tenants in and they stay.
Yeah, that's a great idea. If you can get the property low enough where you can do that's actually a really good idea. The challenge is, okay, well, prices are elevated. Can I get the property low enough to do that? Do I have the specifications right? Well, that if I do this, that it's going to meet my budget. So that's something that an investor has to look at and say, okay, well, I'm going to have to pull a building inspection now because I'm building on top of a dwelling that's already there. I got to pull an electric inspection. All that stuff has to go into it. And so when you're looking at that, you're going to have to get that property really low to do that, because I'm seeing 2-1s and 3-1s still go for prices that they're not really investable right now to buy.
No, you've got to find them usually below that $50,000 mark.
For sure.
And then your budget there to do it. But you're right about that. And the city wasn't as strict about pulling electrical and this stuff before, but you have to stick to that and account for that in your budget too, of pulling all those permits. Or, because if you don't account for that and you're not planning for it, your project gets shut down for 2 months. And then the clock is still ticking on the hard money and you're not able to get moving back on this project until they approve you.
Yeah, and that stuff happens. Stop work orders happen. I've had stop work orders on new construction. I've had stop work orders on flips. One of my contractors left a water heater out in a property I was doing in North Haven. That came back and there's a stop work order on the window. So, and now you're paying double permits for all the fixtures in there. So, all that stuff has to be accounted for. You know, if you're building onto a unit, definitely pull a building inspection, or you're going to get shut down within a couple of weeks because the neighbors are going to see it. Somebody's going to tell you eventually, and then you're basically done for at least 60 days.
It used to be, do it and then ask for forgiveness later, and it has changed now. Like, you ask for permission first on doing these things.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you have to. You really do.
And so what are you seeing some of the most common mistakes? Because you're a project manager with corporate. What are some of the more common mistakes that you see some of these flippers, these turnkey flippers or investors making on these properties?
I think the most common mistakes that I'm seeing, or that I can speak from experience on, is over leveraging. When you're in a market that's hot, it's easy to over leverage, and then when you're in a market that's cold, if you get a lot of activity, it's easy to over leverage in a market that's cold too as well. Because you think about it, when it's hot, you want to do as many transactions as possible, but you can over leverage quickly doing that. When it's cold, but you're still hot as far as activity and you still want to purchase properties, the days on market is going against you now. And so you got to kind of figure out a balance of, okay, well, where am I at? And do I really need to take on another project, or do I need to just sit for a while until I get done with some other projects? So I think a lot of people have, struggles with that. As far as like the renovation itself, over renovating is always going to be a big issue. Not pulling or basically not getting an inspection on the home. I tell a lot of like new flippers all the time, or if you're doing turnkey renovations, is get an inspection on the home. Make sure that you have your ARV in a conservative type level. Because the appraiser doesn't care about what you value the property at or what you need. They don't care. So. I always tell new investors, if you have the ARV, maybe take 10% off that. Maybe go with not the highest comp in the neighborhood, because your house may not look like the highest comp.
Or you're exactly right. Or that was sold as a retail flip, not a turnkey flip. So we can't base that sales price because you're not doing the same thing.
Yeah, and there's a lot of nuances with comps, because you're going to have hedge fund comps in there. You're going to have other companies' comps in there. And sometimes those comps have other installed fees in those, and then those are that may be a high cash comp too as well. Somebody's just paying cash, and they're not even looking through the appraisal, because they have something set up with another company where there's just a lot more incentives for them to buy it all cash. They get all their management fees rolled in. A lot of these comps are going to have guaranteed rents in them from other companies too as well. I am seeing that. I've been seeing that for a long time. So if you're getting high comps, you're like, oh man, this is too high. Just think about that. Like, it may be a cash buyer that's getting a lot of stuff rolled in from a property management company, and that comp is not going to be on your appraisal.
No, and to bring up what we had an appraiser on here from the earlier episode, it is those comps have to be sold on the MLS.
That too.
Because otherwise they can't verify the condition. They can't see, was this truly a comp? Did somebody actually buy two properties in this one package? So it has to be on there. So you've got to make sure they're true comps.
Yeah, you're going to get a lot of, 3 house packages on there too as well. You don't want to get excited about those, because that's that house divided by 3. So that's going to happen a lot too as well. I think they should reach out to you to get those comps, because I know you do a lot of, MLS comps for investors too as well. So reaching out to a third party, maybe getting like a desktop appraisal before. You can do that, pay a couple $100, have somebody do a desktop appraisal for you, just so you know like what you're getting into. And that's what I've been telling new investors, desktop appraisal, get an inspection. Doesn't matter if the house looks great, get an inspection, just to make sure, because when you are doing turnkey flips, you're going to have an inspector come out and actually view the property after the renovation. And you just don't want to have a huge punch-out list.
Right.
You can have a punch-out list that's like $2,000 to $4,000, And the house may look amazing, but there's stuff under the house that's just not right. And so you would have caught a lot of that stuff if you would have got an inspection before the real inspection of you selling the home. And it's going to save a lot of time and money too as well. You don't want a buyer to pull out because your inspection just
destroyed it, right?
It's like, well, I know you're going to fix all this, but it's just too long of an inspection. I need to do more due diligence on why this inspection list is so long, if this is a good investment for me. So if you
Right.
get all that stuff out the way while you're doing the rehab, you don't have to worry about that. And then, these buyers, they want to see a clean inspection report too as well. They really do. They don't want to see lines and lines of things that need to be repaired. So,
And they don't like to see things like electrical panel needs to be replaced, like those type of things, if this is supposed to be a turnkey flip.
yeah, for sure. I mean, turnkey essentially means that 100% repairs, everything is done. So if you have a long list of things that need to be fixed, it's not turnkey anymore.
And then also, I agree with inspections on that, but it's also, every inspection is going to be multiple pages long. It's looking like everything's going to have little things,
Yep.
even including new construction. There's going to be things. It's like, let's look at the big picture, look at the summary, and see, okay, what are these big ticket items that need to be? We don't need to do a nail pop in the roof. Okay, that can be handled. Get your roofer over to do that real quick. One nail pop in the roof. It's, okay, we've got a 15-year-old water heater that's rusting. That's like,
Yeah.
that's going to be an immediate fix I'm going to need to do.
That's the most common thing I see on inspection reports are going to be water heaters. For some reason, a lot of investors are not really taking a look at the manufacturer's date on the water heater. And some of these water heaters, they look brand new and they're like, 10, 15 years old. And they just hadn't been touched.
We moved into our Collierville house and our water heater was from 1997.
Yeah.
And it was still working.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, this isn't going to last very much longer.
Yeah. Another thing I see on inspection reports is going to just be electrical issues too as well. You're going to see a whole lot of that. Piping, as far as like plumbing and things like that.
If in the front yard you see where there's a dip,
Yeah.
where a tree's been removed, you might want to make sure that sewer line has been replaced.
Yeah, sewer lines, yeah, definitely. I mean, these buyers are gonna do sewer inspections. And I've had some flips where I've had to replace a sewer line.
They're not
Wow.
cheap.
Yeah, they're like 4,000, that's minimum really. But I've had some sewer lines I had to replace in flips too as well, while the house is under contract. And that's just not a good feeling because, you gotta dig up the yard, you gotta replace the sewer line, and then you gotta put all that stuff back into it. The yard's messed up. It's just not a good feeling. Now you're coming out of $4,000.
Yeah, and the reason, to kind of clarify, Memphis is a city that has a lot of trees, and a lot of these houses were built where there were terracotta and cast iron sewer lines. And so those tree roots have gotten in those, that's why I started bringing a dip where a tree was. Those tree roots over the years got into those cast iron pipes, so they're waiting to fail.
Yeah, that happens. I've had it happen to me. So
Yep.
That's a really huge tip. Is if you're doing an inspection report, the sewer line is not going to come with the inspection report.
No, it's a
different
separate one.
fee. So you can get one done for $300, but that $300 may save you
4,000.
$4,000. So.
Well, and then okay, going into one last thing. Tell me, we're talking about some of these things to look for. Tell me one of your biggest horror stories you've had.
I would say the biggest horror story I've had is I was building a home and the home got annexed for historical,
Oh, okay.
and they stopped my whole new construction project. And they wanted me to open up a certificate of appropriateness to actually start again building the home, but my foundation and everything was already laid. and I was about to do framing, so I had to stop it for like no, it's like 3 months. And so I didn't get out that home. I had to turn it back to the lender just because I had ran out of time. So that's kind of a rare thing, though.
It's a rare thing, but you bringing up historic district, we've had to, look at that, like now on some of these midtown homes, or even that we didn't typically think like, all right, let's look, is this in a historic district? Because they're going to be a lot stricter on window replacement, on these type of things. It's got to match the aesthetic. You can't modernize this house like to where it looks like modern times. It needs to fit in with the neighborhoods.
Yeah, they're going to be picky on that. They're going to call you out on those meetings. They're going to ask like, why is the elevation like this? The pitch of your roof. Like what's going on with the pitch of your roof?
You can't do vinyl windows. They need to be wood.
Yeah, that too. They're picky about grills too as well. Evergreen is really picky about grills. I've been seeing that. If there's a grill pattern in the neighborhood, they want the grill pattern to match. The only thing about these grills is they're really expensive now, even in vinyl windows. So, you may be paying $300 to $400 per window just to put grills in it, just because that's what they want. So, those are all things that you got to think about when you're going into these neighborhoods. Especially elevation, you don't want to. They're not going to really let you build what you feel like you can build. So you want to get with a plan company that actually knows that area. Because if you just pick out plans just because, and you don't actually talk to an architect that actually knows that area, and then you take those plans to the board, they're like, well, you can't even build this home because of the elevation and the pitch and the way the home is constructed. Cooper Young, they don't really want you to build anything too modern over there. I tried to build a modern home over there just because I saw one that was built across the street, and they told me, well, there's too many modern homes in this block now. We can't do it. You got to come with something.
Give me a bungalow.
Yeah, something that goes straight back. And
little craftsman.
Yeah, and that's what we did. It's like a modern craftsman home, but it just didn't look like, I would say, like a 2020 home. It had to look like a certain.
It needed to look like a 100-year-old home.
It did, yeah. So I see that going on. Cooper Young's extremely picky. Evergreen is too as well. So like if you're going to be building those neighborhoods, you really have to.
And let's not leave out Central Gardens.
Yeah, well, don't touch that. If you're building Central Gardens, you need to have extreme expertise. It's not something you can just, say, I'm just going to get these plans for Central Gardens. They're going to get denied. So
right.
But yeah, just talk. The thing is, like when you're prepping to do new construction, you need to be prepping months and months before you even actually take out the loan.
Get all of your legwork done before when it comes to if you're subdividing a lot. Can you build this? Are you allowed to build this plan? Because you don't want to start all that when the clock is ticking and you're paying money.
Yeah, I mean, if you're trying to figure out site work surveys and all that, and you've already taken out the loan, then more than likely you've already lost in the project before you begin, because it's just too much. You know what I mean? You got, that stuff. And I'm sure, lenders are requiring that stuff to be done already.
Yes.
So, but you need to really prepare for that stuff at least 60 to 90 days before you even think about taking out a loan.
Yeah, and even going on just existing construction for your rehab, just on saying this to be over leveraged. Like when we give out a term sheet, if you're having to bring money to the closing table for the purchase price, you are overpaying for that property because there's your profits right there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in a utopian world, you want as much rolled into the loan as possible. So you don't have your cash flow is not tied up, especially if you're doing multiple projects.
Right.
So, and the way you can do that is get the property at 60%, 65% of the ARV. You're probably going to have another 10% in costs and loan fees and things like that. And so that takes you to 75%, and then maybe you're coming with a couple $100 to close it or something like that, maybe $1,000. I don't know. But the thing is, it's like you can't if you're doing hard money these days, especially with the interest rates, you can't really buy at 75%, minus repairs and things like that, you're going to have to be lower.
You need to be all in at 65, like you said.
Yeah, 65 all in. And that's going to be difficult to do sometimes depending on the dynamics of the owner, where he wants to sell the property at. Not every deal you're going to come across you can do that with. So, but you still have to be really selective. And then just because you get a deal at 65%, you still have to be selective on if this is the right deal for you to do. You can get 2-1s at 65% all day, but should you be taking out a loan on a 2-1 in this market environment right now? Probably not.
Probably not.
So, yeah, definitely something to think about.
Yep. Well, I think we're pretty much out of time right now, but I really appreciate all of your knowledge on this, and thank you all for tuning in. And, Rich, you want to say anything about CoreBuild, what y'all do?
Yeah, CoreBuild, we have partnered up with CoreLend, and so our goal is to help investors, streamline their project management, streamline their renovation, and just make sure that they're getting those jobs done in a timely manner. So that is our main objective at CoreBuild right now. We have an amazing team. We would love to, manage your project, give you insight. I've done a lot of flips. I've done new construction. So any new investors that are submitting applications to CoreLend, definitely reach out to me. I can give you any type of advice that you need. I've done it all. And so we want to partner with you and help you guys out, help you guys succeed, and help you do more loans and manage your projects with you together.
And we appreciate you. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Awesome.